Y'all ready to get started?
Good, man.
All right. Sorry for the delayed start. We had some issues. I'm going to go ahead and dive in because there's usually a lot of questions about the BRRRR strategy. We'll kind of do like networking afterwards. Are y'all okay with that? All right. So does anyone know what the BRRRR strategy is, what it stands for, just off the top? People? Okay. Where's my flipper? All right. So the BRRRR strategy is actually like a combination of buying a property, flipping it, but then flipping it into a rental all at the same time. And so that's what the abbreviation stands for: buy, renovate, rent, and then you refinance. And that's where the acronym BRRRR stands for. There's actually another R for repeat. Okay? What do y'all know why you would consider the BRRRR strategy? Same capital over and over, right? Yeah. So with the BRRRR strategy, if you set it up properly, you can have a very high rate of return, if not infinite, which is pretty awesome. Okay. Now, of course, that there's always risk involved with the BRRRR strategy. This is a little bit more advanced and a riskier strategy if you don't know what you're doing. I'd also probably go to say that you may not be able to do the BRRRR strategy if you're new to it. Like the lender may not lend to you if you don't have all your ducks in a row and you've never done it before. However, if you do have the experience, man, you can leverage this at a very high level. So doing your homework is critical. Having the ARV and the repair cost before you purchase the property on this is super critical. It's always critical, but you're going to be refinancing based on the ARV. And so you really need to have this nailed down at a high level. Not only that, your repair cost. You're going to be repairing this property. You don't want to go over budget, because if you go over budget, and I'll explain this in detail, you're going to exceed a threshold on to when you can actually refinance out.
Hello.
How are y'all?
Good. Come on in.
And so that's where I'm going at. The wrong ARV, or if you basically overspend on repair cost, means that you may not be able to refinance out at the end, or you'll have to bring money to the table. So knowing those numbers are super critical. Let's see. Here's another thing that you're going to need is good credit, because you will have to go through like a bank, a lender, to refinance out. And so they're going to need to be able to lend to you. So you want to have that relationship with your banker before you even start this process. Okay? Any questions over that? I know I haven't answered all. I didn't do it.
Do you BRRRR single family, multi-family, commercial, lots, etc., etc.?
The simple answer to that is yes. It's just, it's a little bit harder on like higher priced items. But you can, absolutely. Like this is a great strategy for like single family housing.
Single family housing?
Yep. Okay. Or duplexes, if they're like in bad shape, or small apartments, you can do that. All right, so same formula that we taught last time at the meeting. ARV times 70% minus repairs equals purchase price. That's the same formula you taught. This is the same formula I had in this presentation a year and a half ago. Here's the deal. You have to be all in. So your purchase price plus the repairs for 70 to 75%. So you have to use this formula for above that. Why?
Refinance will be for 100% of the value.
So you're on the right track. You said 100%? Yes, because once you do the repairs and you rent it, you need to refinance out with like a regular lender, and the most that they're probably going to be able to do is 80 to 85%. Okay, so your loan to value needs to be basically below 85%, and so you have to make sure that you don't go above that. All right. Well, actually, let's take us. Oh no, I have you in here later, so we'll cover you in a second. All right. So after you buy the property using that formula, you're gonna go through the renovation stage. You're gonna hire contractors to do the repairs, to bring it up to par to get it ready for rent. Okay. Again, the repair budget is super critical, so I would recommend you get at least 3 bids. Okay. The cheapest one's not always the best. I just make sure that you're making sure that you have the correct repair budget in place. And you want to be fast. You need to repair this in probably as quick as possible. A month time frame if possible, 2 months. You don't want to hold onto this because you need to rent it out as soon as possible because you cannot refinance it until it's rented.
How do you find a good contractor, and is it a good idea to pay up front or after the
You never pay up front. Never pay up front. You will get burned that way. You may have like a pay schedule. Once they do so much amount of work, you pay that contractor. And most likely, the hard money lender that you're going to use is going to be on that same schedule or some type of schedule like that. And so you kind of pay as you go, but you never pay up front. You'll get burned. All right, and we're going to dive down into examples and explain it in further detail. So once you repair it, you now have to get it rented. And so you probably need to start advertising this, as soon as possible, whenever it's actually available for showing. Because again, you cannot refinance this property until it's rented. I would recommend you use a property management company. You don't have to, but I always do recommend. They can also help you with the repairs. Or you don't trust people, your property management company can do that for you. And so it may be smart to hire a property management company as you're starting this strategy. They're also going to know what it's going to rent for. They can help get you estimates. Kind of right now in today's market, we're kind of like a rule of thumb, $1 per square foot. That's a general rule of thumb. So $1,000 square foot home rents for $1,000 a month. It is pretty good. We're in a hot market right now, which is probably hard to find good wholesale deals or to find good properties to buy because everything's at an all-time high. But they're still out there. So after you have the property rented, all you need is the lease. They don't have to actually be physically in there. You can start the refinance process. So you're going to take it to your lender, and they're going to refinance you out of your hard money lender that you're going to use to do all this. And they're going to have a better interest rate. And so it's going to make sense long-term to hold it as a rental. It doesn't make sense to hold a rental with a hard money lender because his interest rate's too high. And this is where you need to have the lender in place before you even start this process and let them know what you're doing and see if they are actually willing to do this for you. And they're going to have a cap of what they can refinance, which is usually 80 to 85% of the ARV. Am I forgetting anything like Kevin so far? Have I lost anyone? Yes.
I think it's important to note that it's not your ARV, but what an appraiser says.
That's why your ARV is super critical. You need to have it right because the bank's going to pull their own ARV or BPO. So that's why at the very beginning your ARV and repair estimates need to be spot on. Also, when you refinance with a bank, like a hard lender, you usually have to pay them off within a year to a year, where a traditional lender, you can have a mortgage for 20, 25 years, depending on the lender that you go through. So just the quick breakdown, you use a hard money lender to purchase the property and to fund the repairs. You repair it, you rent it out, and then you refinance it through a bank which pays off the hard money lender. So now you have a rental, and it really didn't cost you any money up front, except for getting into the property with the hard money lender and probably closing costs. Yes?
Usually a time frame, right? That you have to have that paid off when the hard money
With,
lender
with a hard money lender, yeah, which is usually
a year.
up to a year. Up to a year.
Yeah, we kind of are changing right now. Most of these, you can do a full remodel, but it takes a lot longer, to do that. We used to do it up to 9 months. We're scaling back because most of them you should do like Will said in a month. Get it rehab, because you're not talking a full renovation that you're gonna flip, so it doesn't need to be super nice. So we're probably cutting it back to 4 and 6 months right now, so that should give you plenty of time. Here's the challenge though, you kind of have to look out for, because some of the, depends on the bank that you go to, some of the banks are gonna require you to season, and that strategy may not work, and they want you, we had one of our investors had a bank that said, oh, we gotta have a renter in there a year before, and I'm like, no, we need to go to the bank. So we've got different banks that we can send you to that are more friendly and understanding of our strategy. But that's one thing you kind of have to look out for, that's your bank. How long does it have to be seasoned? The second, I'm sorry, you finished, right?
I'm going to give you plenty of time to speak, Kevin. Okay. Yeah. So this is why it's not for the average, these small little things right here. I say average small investor. You need experience. You need to know what you're doing. You need to have your hard money lender in place before you even start. You need your banker in place before you even start and know about seasoning. You need to have a contractor or property management company in place before you even start. Like, you need your team ready to rock and roll as you start this strategy. I'd also say a realtor, because you're going to have spot on ARV numbers. So here's an actual example. Actually, it's not an actual example, but it's an example. Uh-oh.
Gotta keep touching that window.
A lot of moving parts, strategy.
The thing you have to watch out is your like how much money you're in, your loan to value. That's the most critical thing, your loan to value. So here's a basic example. I think we almost did this example last week, but we're going to go at a different strategy. A house with an ARV of 100,000, right? Then you use the formula times 70% minus repairs, so your purchase price is 50,000. Does everyone follow how I got there? That's basic math. A traditional loan, if you were to go through a bank, you'd have to put 20% down. But this also, 20% down. And in this case, you'd have $20,000 worth of repairs. So your total investment would be $30,000 out of pocket on this. on this deal. It's not a bad deal. This is actually how most people in Lubbock buy properties. Or they go through a bank, they put 20% down, and then they fix it up with their own money and then rent it out. So in this case, $1,000 per month, $1,200 per year. But what's your return on investment on this? It's 40% return on investment. That's actually a pretty good deal. This is why people are doing this. This is actually not a BRRRR strategy. This is how people are just buying right now. 40% return on investment. That's beating stock markets. That's why people are investing in real estate. Okay? That's a traditional. Now let's go to the BRRRR strategy. Same property, 100,000 times the formula minus 20,000 in repairs, purchase price 50,000. But you use Kevin, hard money lender, to buy it. How much do you require down? 5,000 instead of 10,000. He'll also fund the repairs. So how much are you out of pocket? 5,000. Okay? Same thing. It rents for $1,000, $1,200 per year. Once you do the return on investment, 2,400% return on investment. You see the big difference? People are raving fans over 40%, and this is how I buy my properties personally.
What's the average on the stock market, like 7 or 8?
You can average 8%. Traditional real estate investing, 20 to 40%. With that example I just did. BRRRR strategy, in this example, over 2,000% return.
With this strategy, how many properties do you acquire within a year? How many properties possible?
There's really no limit to this. One, it's can your hard money lender keep up? Can your property management company keep up? And can your lender keep up? And can you keep up? Yeah, can you keep up? It's also, you have to buy the deal right. If it doesn't meet that formula, you're out.
So these return on investment numbers don't include the money taken out for your mortgage and other expenses, correct? Because $1,000 per month is not all going into your pocket.
That's correct. These are basic numbers.
And then, just for a nuanced question, so do you use the 70% minus rehab, and then do you also minus the amount that you pay to the hard money lender, or is that just included in your 70%? Want to purchase this?
In this example, I'd have to come out of pocket $5,000 to get into this deal.
Yes, but Kevin is going to get paid for lending you money, say 10%, so he lends you the $70,000 total. So that's $7,000. So would you want to purchase at $43,000 to cover his costs?
So it's 5,000 down up front, but then his payoff is 65. He applies it towards the total balance.
Yes, but he's
Yeah.
getting a percentage on top of the 70,000.
Yes.
Right? So he wants 70,000. He doesn't want 70,000 back. He wants 77,000 back or 80,000
Yep.
or whatever.
You are correct.
Take that extra percentage off of the purchase price, or is that included in your mind in the 7% of ARV?
I'll let him explain how he structures everything, since that's his loan. But just I'm saying, these are basic numbers. I'm not including, like I had to pay Kevin at interest rate, utilities. You know, these are basic numbers, but using basic numbers, you see the difference, 40% to over 2,000%. Now, each strategy would have the same percentages and taxes and insurance, and so it carry over. It's just, this is how powerful this strategy is. It's over 2,000% better just using these numbers right here. But yes, there are other fees and all that stuff, but there's ways that you can also increase this number even higher. And I don't know if I have that on the next slide. That's a secret sauce. to where it's infinite return.
Can you go back to that last slide real quick?
Oh, yeah.
Take it, Okay.
Yeah, just to follow up. 40% return or over 2,000% return? Which method are you using? After this, hopefully y'all can find ways to start doing the BRRRR strategy. Now, what Kevin has taught me is he requires 5,000 down, right? What if you rolled that into the purchase? And then have the seller pay that back to you at closing. With you. Why? Now I'm out of pocket. Zero. What's your return on investment if you're out of pocket? Zero. Infinite. Let me take that back. I had to pay closing cost, $1,000 on the back end with the lender.
You can actually add that to those, find out where the title company's closing costs are.
For,
Usually,
yeah, you could, yeah.
actually, as long as they don't go over the 75% loan value, you can look everything
Yep, you can. And even on the back end, when you refinance out, most banks will go up to 85%, but you can also roll in closing costs into that. That's why you want to have it down below, around 75%. Don't go above 75 because then you can refinance all the closing costs into the loan, so you still stay at zero. So you can literally buy a property with nothing out of pocket if you know how to structure it right and if you know how you're doing. If you know how to do this strategy at a high level with an infinite return. Questions? Or would y'all like to hear from Kevin on his lending, how it works a little bit?
Do you have how you put that 5,000 back into the, or would you?
All right, so an actual live example, and because we've done this, he gave me a wholesale deal. I don't remember the price. It was 50,000, and I came back. I'll give you 55 if you pay that 5,000 back to me at closing.
So they have to be willing to pay.
And of course they're going to do that.
I mean,
Or it is how we structured it. You said where I think he took it out of. Did you take it out of your commission? You did. Whatever.
The second, third deal.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
But I was willing to do it to make a deal work.
Yeah. But I was willing to pay more than what he was asking, so that I get that back at closing, which then pays Kevin, so I'm out of pocket zero. So that's more on the creative financing side. It's how you structure the deal. Structuring the deal means way more than probably the price.
Yes.
Wouldn't y'all agree?
Yeah.
How the deal, the terms are way more.
Terms is everything. Terms is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, you want to give a little bit about more detail of your loan, if you want to? I mean, yeah. You have to have the microphone now. We don't need a screen anymore. Oh wait, 1010. There we go. I knew I had you on there. Yeah.
So this is probably one of the best wealth building strategies that's out there. One thing that is really cool about it that we'll do these all day long. I mean, we love doing BRRRRs because one, it's a way for investors to probably triple the number of properties that they can get. Because if you go to a bank, a lot of money up front, right? If it's a $100,000 property, you're talking $20,000, right? 20% down. So the trick in this whole thing is it's a way to get around the banks, all right? The banks have rules, and so when you play by the bank's rules, it costs you wealth sometimes, right? So you might as well find a way around their rules that's acceptable to them. So for instance, if you go straight to the bank first, I don't care if you buy the property at a 70% discount, you're still going to have to put up 20%. And they're not going to give you the rehab money. You're going to have to come out of pocket most of the time, and they'll reimburse you with receipts, okay? So what we'll do is if you buy it right, we'll lend up to 75%, okay? So you're getting into the property using that strategy really with no money out of your pocket. So how does that build wealth other than you get to control more properties with that 20,000. So now you have, instead of one property that you've spent 20,000, you haven't spent the money, it's equity, right? You get to control 4 properties with that $20,000, right? So your numbers will work no matter what if you're following the 75%, because when you go to refi, the bank's going to love it, because the bank does not like properties that are not rehabbed. They don't. That's why they want you to put such a big down payment down, right? So when a house needs to be rehabbed, demo day, it drops about 30 to 40% in value. So that's a huge risk for the banks. That's why they don't like it, all right? So they're going to lend off of loan to what it costs you. That's what they're going to use, is loan to cost. So I bring that up because when you guys are talking to a bank, when you're going to get pre-approved at the bank, ask them that question. Will you lend off a loan to cost, or if I refi it out, will you do a loan to value, what the actual value is? That's a huge question and a huge point, all right? Because if they're going to refinance it at a loan to cost, because they know you bought it 2 months ago, they know you bought it at a discount, but they're going to say, well, there's no way it's worth more than that. You still, and they might tell you this too, we've had this a lot, it's a blended deal, loan to cost and loan to value. We kind of look at both. Just run, go different bank, all right? Go to the bank that will say, okay, yes, when you refi out of this, we are going to get an appraisal of the property, and we're going to lend up to 80-85% off of that new value, that after repaired value, okay? That's vital that you find a bank that'll do that. Number 2, do you guys know what debt service coverage ratio is? So if you don't, debt service coverage ratio is you're paying a certain amount of debt per month, right? And so you've got to be able to service that debt by the rent that's coming in. It's got to cover it by 1 and 1.25, 1.2.
1.2 to 1.5,
Yeah.
depending on where you go.
So you need to ask your bank that question as well. What's your debt service coverage ratio? Because when you're looking
Can we do
for,
an example of that?
yeah, so
Rent's $1,000. Your mortgage payment is $1,000. What is it? It's just a straight 1%.
1%.
Banks don't like that. What do they like? They like to see 1.2. So 1,200 rent, mortgage payment 1,000, which leaves
Yeah.
you $200 different, which is 1.2. They like to see that or higher.
Taxes and insurance, or
That's PITI.
Yeah, PITI is really what it is.
Yeah. And so most banks like to see it higher than 1.2, more like 1.5. 1,500 rent, mortgage payment 1,000. So you have an actual $500 left over, which would be your cash flow. The higher the cash flow, the higher percentage that is. Banks like that see that over 1.2 and higher.
That's safety that you're going to, and it's a good thing for you to look at too, because that's safety and that you're going to cash flow. Because if you look at it and you're not going to cash flow, there's no reason to buy that property, right? Or you're going to have to put more money down so it will cash flow. It'll just change your ROI, right? So ask that question. The reason that's important too is not just because whether the bank will do it or not, but when you're looking for properties and you go into an area, that property, it may not rent for what it should rent, okay? It's in an area, let's say it's got 3,000, or let's get realistic. Maybe let's say it's got, 2,200 square feet, but every house on that block is only 1,300 square feet, okay? You're not gonna attract a buyer or a renter to that area that would pay $2,200 a month, right? So you're the biggest house there. That's not a good thing. So your debt service coverage ratio is not going to work there because your rent's not going to keep up to what you're paying for the house. So that strategy might be a better flip. So you gotta kind of look at those debt service coverage ratios for a couple of different reasons, but it's mainly cash flow. Make sure that the bank, will do. I think 1.2 is pretty standard. Some will do 1.1, 1.1.5, but
Banks like it higher.
yeah, safer
Higher
for
the
them.
number, they go, hey,
Yeah, it's
their
safer
eyes
for
open
them.
up, like, all right, we're covered.
Yeah. So, as you know, the more properties you can control, right, the more you'll cash flow. A lot of times people say, well, I don't want to pay your fees, right? Because our fees are 12%. Okay, well, with our BRRRRs, we drop them down a little bit because you're in and out pretty quick, so we drop our fees down. But if you can now control 4 properties at a 2,000% return, it makes way more sense. And you're only paying it for what, 4 months, 6 months, 3 or 4 months. Don't get caught up in the rates, okay? Get caught up in the control of the properties. That's so important to understand. So yeah, those are some high points that I want to make sure we kind
Forget
of
about
cover.
those rates. They don't matter. Are they higher than a traditional bank? Yes. But you don't have to pay 20% down to use him. And you're only going to be using him for literally a few months, like 2 to 3 months before you refinance out. So you're really not paying him a whole lot. He needs to get you in the door and then you get out. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
He gets you in the door, then you can get out. Which is why you need to have a banker ready to go on the back end.
So with that said, that's an important point too, is we won't do the loan, we won't do the BRRRR strategy unless your bank has already approved you that they will take out the loan. So that's important. Wendell said it in the beginning, you need to make sure the first thing you do is go get approved at your bank. And as we all know with banks, you have to have great credit. But let's say you don't have great credit. Can you still do the BRRRR? You can with some private money. All right, that's another great way to use private money. Let them finance it for 2 or 3 months for you, and then they get to reuse their capital, right? And it's safe for them. I mean, it's a great strategy because we could actually do the initial loan if we knew that person would take our loan out. We just have to be confident that our loan would be taken because we don't check for credit. We don't do bank statements. You go to a bank, it's a nightmare.
So my banker, I have to do a net worth statement, which I've covered in this. My 2 years tax return, bank statements. I have to show them all basically all the money that I have. And I have to do this yearly, guys, yearly. so I can stay on board to do these type of loans with Kevin, and they just say, go. So the bank needs all that, and of course they check my credit score. Kevin doesn't care about any of that. He just looks at the property. Is that a good deal or not? Yes, here's the money. It's that simple.
And we'll help you guys. I mean, if you have questions, I mean, come up to my office, sit down. I'll help you as much as I can, you know.
Any questions for Kevin? Did I lose anyone on this first strategy? How many of y'all buying rentals right now?
How do you structure your payouts for rental costs?
Say that again.
How do you structure your payouts for rental costs?
Oh, yeah. So that's another thing. That's a good point that you bring up. So we're all investors, right? So we tried to structure our loan products to help investors. So if you go to a bank, you know, you have to do the work and then they'll reimburse you. And they may not reimburse you all of it. So what we do is we have you do a draw schedule, okay? Maybe 3 or 4 draws, 5 draws. And so it kind of helps with your contractor as well, because you never pay your contractor until the work's finished. And we're a good scapegoat for that, because we make you make a list with your contractor that says, okay, we're going to do this, this, this. It helps you to make a plan, because a lot of contractors will come in and they'll do a little bit here and they'll do a little bit over here and they'll do it, and you don't know what they've done, right? And I need to get paid early. I need to, they have all these strategies that they use to try to get money, and then they don't show up after you pay them, right? Well, I did all this and I did it, but there's no plan, and it takes them 10 times longer to get the property finished. So we want you to sit down with your contractor and do a draw schedule and say, okay, what are you going to do first? Let's get a plan here. All right, first $10,000. That's what it is. Okay, very good. Here's your $10,000. Go to work. Once it's finished, you come back to me. I'll go out and do an inspection, make sure 80, 90% of it. It's not always 100%, unfortunately, but but
They're usually good though, because they want the person to money.
that's right.
They can't get it unless the work's
Yeah. And that's another thing you can tell your contract. Hey, I can't pay you until, my lender won't give me the money. So, you need to get the work done, and then we can go on to the next phase. And then you'll have your next draw in there, and we'll see what that is, and we'll give you the next draw on it. And then when that's finished, then we'll go look at it again. But we front the draws where a bank will not front the draws, which is nice, because it's, again, the less money out of your pocket, the better.
So he'll give you like, let's say his $30,000 repair budget into 3 draws, 10, 10, 10. He'll give you $10,000 up front so we can start, but he won't give you any more until you tell him at least $10,000 worth of work is done. He'll come out and inspect it, and then here's your next 10. So you don't have to upfront the repair cost. He'll upfront portions, and then as you go along, he'll keep it coming.
The other thing is, I highly recommend do not pay your contractor. They'll say, well, I need 50% down. No, just blame it on your lender and just say, my lender won't let me. We can start with, 5,000 down, or, whatever, 10,000, whatever you can control. All right, because I'm gonna pay you. You're borrowing it, so I'm gonna pay you. It's your job to make sure that you distribute it the proper way because I'm not gonna pay the contractor. So, but they'll try to say, well, I want 50% down, and then they don't show up.
Never pay a contractor up front.
And I don't care if you've worked with them 20 times, never pay a contractor up front. They usually do real good the first one, and it's the second one where they get you.
I probably utilize 30 to 40 contractors here in Lubbock. Not a single one I pay up front, and they're all okay with it. So if you have a contractor that wants to get paid up front, go find another one.
Yeah.
There's plenty of them.
The good contractors, they may want a little bit down, and that's fine. you know, for materials, for, you know, depending on if they do cost plus or, you know, whatever they do, it's okay. But not when they come in and say 50%. That just is, that should be a red flag for everybody.
Any other questions? Big questions?
Yes, big questions.
Do I need to go over it step by step again? Are y'all pretty much on board? Cool. Well, that's the BRRRR strategy in a nutshell. It's actually a little bit more complicated than that, but. All right, so pizza networking? Yeah, pizza networking. All right, sounds good. Thank you.